In the tranquil morning glow at Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary, 3 bobcat cubs were rescued from illegal wildlife trade, but tragically, their mother did not survive. The bobcat cubs, placed in a wildlife sanctuary, became withdrawn and refused to eat due to the trauma of losing their mother. When conventional methods fail and hope dwindles, a daring idea emerges. The sanctuary decided to introduce a gentle rescue dog named Daisy to act as a surrogate mother. Could a rescue dog, a new mother herself, be the answer to saving these wild lives? What began as a desperate attempt turned into a miraculous bond, defying all expectations and rewriting the rules of wildlife rehabilitation. This is a heartwarming story of an unlikely bond, as Daisy, the gentle mutt, steps in to nurture the struggling bobcats. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The morning sun had barely crested the mountains surrounding Whispering Pines Wildlife Sanctuary when Emily Johnson's phone rang. At 58, Emily had thought she'd seen everything in her 30 years of wildlife rehabilitation. But the panic in Ranger Mike's voice told her this day would be different. "We've got 3 bobcat kittens, Emily. Tiny things. Confiscated from some lowlife trying to sell them at a truck stop outside of Tucson." His voice cracked. "We lost the mother. She was badly dehydrated and injured when they found her." Emily closed her eyes, her weathered hand gripping the phone tighter. Another casualty of the illegal exotic pet trade that had been flourishing in Arizona's border regions. "How old?" she asked, already calculating space requirements and formula needs in her head. "Can't be more than 4 weeks. They're refusing food, Emily, all 3 of them. The vet says they're failing fast." 30 minutes later, Emily stood in her small examination room, gazing down at 3 bundles of spotted fur, each small enough to fit in her palm. Their eyes were open, blue-gray and unfocused, their tiny bodies trembling with fear and hunger. The smallest one, a female with a distinct white patch on her ear, made a pitiful mewling sound that seemed to echo through the sanctuary's quiet morning air. "Oh, little ones," Emily whispered, reaching gently to stroke the smallest kitten with one finger. It recoiled, hissing weakly. "I know you miss your mama. I'm so sorry." For 3 days, Emily tried everything she knew. Bottle feedings were refused. Syringe feedings resulted in stress so severe that the male kitten had a seizure. They huddled together in the corner of their heated enclosure, 3 diminishing specks of spotted fur, their eyes growing duller by the hour. On the morning of the 4th day, Emily sat in her office, head in her hands, the sanctuary's financial reports forgotten on her desk. The sanctuary was her life's work, built on land inherited from her grandfather in northern Arizona's high country. At nearly 60, the lines on her face told stories of countless rescues, rehabilitations, and the inevitable heartbreaks that came with the work. Her silvering hair was perpetually pulled back in a practical ponytail, her hands calloused from years of manual labor. Her granddaughter, Lizzie, a wildlife biology student doing an internship at the sanctuary, knocked softly before entering. "I heard you didn't go to bed last night, Gran," she said, setting down a mug of coffee. At 22, Lizzie had her grandmother's determined green eyes and practical nature, but her approach to wildlife rehabilitation was influenced by newer research than what had been available in Emily's day. Emily sighed. "Those bobcat babies won't make it another day without nutrition. I've tried everything, Lizzie. Everything." Lizzie perched on the edge of the desk, her expression thoughtful. "Not everything, Gran. What about Daisy?" Emily looked up sharply. "Daisy? She's not even a year old herself. And she's a dog, Lizzie. A rescue mutt." A rescue mutt who just weaned a litter of puppies 3 weeks ago, Lizzie pointed out, her eyes lighting up with the idea. She's still lactating a little, and she's the gentlest soul I've ever met. It's too dangerous, Emily began, but Lizzie cut her off. More dangerous than letting those kittens starve? You always told me that in rehabilitation, sometimes you have to try the unthinkable. Emily stared at her granddaughter, memories flooding back of her own mentor's words from decades ago. Sometimes nature needs a little help connecting dots it wouldn't connect on its own, old Dr. Thompson had told her once, when they'd successfully paired an orphaned hawk chick with a surrogate father. "Get Daisy," Emily said finally. "But we do this carefully, Lizzie. Very carefully." Daisy had come to the sanctuary the previous winter, a pregnant stray found half-frozen in a drainage ditch during a rare snowstorm. She was a medium-sized dog of indeterminate breeding. Perhaps some golden retriever, some shepherd, and who knew what else, with soft golden fur and gentle brown eyes that seemed to hold a deep well of patience. After delivering her puppies in the sanctuary's small veterinary clinic, she had proven to be an exceptional mother, leading to all 6 puppies being quickly adopted by families in the nearby town of Pine Creek. Daisy herself had become a sanctuary favorite, accompanying Emily on her rounds, her calm presence seemingly therapeutic to many of the injured animals in their care. Emily had planned to find her a permanent home once she fully recovered from motherhood, but somehow, that plan had been repeatedly delayed. They brought Daisy to a separate room adjacent to where the Bobcat kittens were being kept. Emily sat on the floor, cradling the smallest kitten, the female with the white-patched ear, in a soft towel. The kitten's breathing was shallow, her tiny body cool despite the heated blanket. "Easy, Daisy," Emily murmured as Lizzie led the dog in. "Easy, girl." Daisy's nose twitched immediately, her ears perking forward. She approached slowly, her tail making small, uncertain wags. When she reached Emily, she lowered her head gently, sniffing the tiny bundle in the towel. The kitten stirred, giving a small hiss that seemed to take the last of its energy. Emily held her breath, ready to pull the kitten away at the first sign of aggression from either animal. But what happened next would stay with her for the rest of her life. Daisy whined softly, a sound achingly similar to the one she made when searching for her puppies. She lay down beside Emily, her head extended toward the kitten, and began to lick the tiny creature with gentle, motherly strokes. The kitten, instead of recoiling as it had from human touch, grew still. After a moment, it turned its small face toward the warmth and comfort of Daisy's fur. "Gran," Lizzie whispered, her eyes wide. "Look." Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she carefully set the kitten down closer to Daisy. The dog immediately curled around it, continuing to groom the tiny creature as if it were her own puppy. "Let's try the others," Emily said softly. One by one, they brought the other 2 kittens in. The same miracle repeated itself. Daisy accepted each one, gathering them against her warm body, grooming them with maternal care. Within an hour, all 3 kittens were nestled against her belly, and to Emily's astonishment, they began to nurse. "It won't be ideal nutrition," Emily murmured, watching as the kittens suckled weakly. "We'll still need to supplement with formula if they'll take it. But this connection might save them." Lizzie squeezed her grandmother's shoulder. "Sometimes the medicine they need most is love, Gran. You taught me that." Over the next week, a transformation occurred that defied all of Emily's professional expectations. Under Daisy's constant care, the Bobcat kittens began to thrive. They gained weight, Their fur grew glossier, and their eyes brightened with kitten curiosity. Daisy never left their side, grooming them, carrying them gently by the scruff when they strayed too far, and rumbling low warnings when they played too rough. The sanctuary staff began calling the kittens Patch, the female with the white ear, Scout, the larger male, and Rascal, the smaller male who proved quickest to explore. Daisy seemed to recognize each by name, responding differently to their individual mews and behaviors. Emily documented everything, taking photos and videos, keeping meticulous notes on their development. This unusual interspecies adoption was unlike anything she'd encountered in her long career, and she recognized both its rarity and its potential value to wildlife rehabilitation techniques. By the time the kittens were 8 weeks old, they were eating solid food, specialized formula mixed with small pieces of appropriate meat, though they still slept curled against Daisy's warm body each night. Their play had taken on distinctly feline characteristics, with stalking, pouncing, and climbing becoming favorite activities. Daisy watched it all with maternal patience, occasionally joining their games, but mostly serving as a safe harbor to which they returned when tired or uncertain. Their wild instincts are intact, Emily reported to Dr. Rivera, the sanctuary's consulting veterinarian, during one of his regular visits. They're developing hunting behaviors right on schedule despite the unusual circumstances. Dr. Rivera, a man in his 40s who had dedicated his career to wildlife medicine, nodded as he examined Scout. Their physical development is excellent. No signs of imprinting on humans, which is crucial. But I'm concerned about their attachment to Daisy. These cats will eventually need to be either released or placed in a proper facility. They can't stay with a dog forever. Emily had been avoiding this reality, though she knew he was right. The sanctuary's mission was rehabilitation with the goal of release whenever possible. For animals that couldn't be released, they sought placement in appropriate wildlife facilities. Keeping wild animals as pets, even in a sanctuary setting, went against everything Emily believed in. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," she said, watching as Scout scrambled from the examination table and raced back to where Daisy waited patiently. For now, she's giving them what they need. "Just remember," Dr. Rivera cautioned, "the longer they stay with her, the harder the separation will be, for all of them." By the time the kittens were 4 months old, they had become the sanctuary's unofficial mascots. Volunteers delighted in watching them from a respectful distance, observing as they practiced increasingly coordinated hunting pounces on fallen leaves or each other's tails. Daisy remained their constant companion, though her role had shifted from nurturing mother to patient playmate and guardian. Emily knew the time for decisions was approaching. The bobcats were growing rapidly, their baby spots fading to adult markings, their blue kitten eyes changing to the tawny gold of mature bobcats. Soon, they would begin the transition to independence that would naturally occur in the wild. "We've had interest from the Mountain Wildlife Preserve in Colorado," Lizzie told her one evening as they sat on the porch of Emily's small cabin on the sanctuary grounds, watching the sunset paint the ponderosa pines in gold. "They have an excellent bobcat habitat and educational program. All 3 could stay together." Emily nodded, her heart heavy. "It's a good option, better than most. But we need to start the separation process soon. Get them used to being without Daisy before they're transferred." The following day, they made the first attempt. While the bobcats were eating their morning meal, they moved Daisy to Emily's cabin, a 1/4 mile from the enclosure where the young bobcats lived. The results were immediate and distressing. Once they realized Daisy was gone, all 3 bobcats began pacing frantically, making high-pitched calls that echoed through the sanctuary. They refused their food, scratched at the doors, and huddled together in obvious distress. But the most heartbreaking reaction came from Daisy herself, who howled mournfully and scratched at Emily's door until her paws were raw. "This isn't working," Lizzie said after 4 hours of mounting anxiety. "Their stress levels are too high. Patch hasn't stopped calling since we removed Daisy." Emily watched through the observation window as the smallest bobcat sat in the center of the enclosure, her head raised, releasing call after desperate call for her surrogate mother. "Bring Daisy back," Emily conceded. "We'll try a more gradual approach." The reunion was emotional for everyone who witnessed it. Daisy burst into the enclosure and was immediately swarmed by 3 jubilant young bobcats, all purring thunderously as they rubbed against her, checked her over, and finally curled up beside her in exhausted relief. Emily and Lizzie exchanged worried glances over the touching scene. The bond was even stronger than they had realized. For the next 2 weeks, they tried various separation strategies, shorter periods apart, keeping them in adjacent enclosures where they could see each other, gradual distance increases. Nothing worked. The bobcats became visibly depressed when separated from Daisy for more than a short time, and Daisy herself showed signs of anxiety and sadness. "I've never seen anything like it," Emily confessed to Dr. Rivera during a concerned phone call. "It's as if they've forgotten their different species. They've created their own family unit." "It's not unheard of in captive settings," Dr. Rivera replied thoughtfully. "There are documented cases of unusual interspecies bonds. The question is what's best for their long-term welfare." The decision came to a head when representatives from the Mountain Wildlife Preserve arrived to evaluate the bobcats for potential transfer. Thomas Wilkins, their head zoologist, observed the unusual family for a full day before meeting with Emily in her office. "They're beautiful cats, in excellent physical condition," he acknowledged, reviewing his notes. "But I have serious concerns about separating them from the dog. The stress could cause significant setbacks in their development." "So you won't take them?" Emily asked, part disappointed, part relieved. Wilkins stroked his beard thoughtfully. "I didn't say that. What if we took the dog too?" Emily stared at him. "You can't be serious. She's not a wild animal. She's a domestic dog who should be in a home with people." "Hear me out," Wilkins said, leaning forward in his chair. "Our preserve has staff housing on site. One of our senior keepers, Maria, has been looking for a companion animal. What if Daisy lived with her but had supervised time with the bobcats daily? As the cats mature further, we could gradually decrease that time, allowing them to develop more independence while avoiding traumatic separation." The idea was unprecedented, but the more Emily considered it, the more sense it made. The preserve had resources and expertise that her small sanctuary couldn't match, and the arrangement would prioritize the welfare of all the animals involved. After much discussion, consultations with the sanctuary's board of directors, and a long conversation with Maria herself via video call, Emily agreed to the unusual arrangement. The day of departure was bittersweet. Emily and Lizzie personally accompanied the animals to Colorado, riding in the specially equipped van with Daisy and the crated bobcats. Daisy, sensing something significant was happening, stayed close to the carriers, occasionally whining softly to reassure her unusual offspring. The Mountain Wildlife Preserve was impressive. A sprawling facility nestled in the Colorado Rockies, with large naturalistic habitats and a dedicated staff of wildlife professionals. Maria, their senior Faleed keeper, was a warm, competent woman in her 30s, who immediately impressed Emily with her knowledge and compassion. "They'll have 3 acres of forested habitat," Maria explained as she showed them the specially prepared enclosure. It's designed to encourage natural behaviors while allowing for observation and care. The Bobcats' introduction to their new home went smoothly, with Daisy present to provide reassurance as they cautiously explored the unfamiliar territory. By sunset, all three were comfortable enough to begin climbing the carefully placed logs and rock formations, while Daisy watched attentively from below. When it was time for Daisy to go to Maria's cabin for the night, Emily held her breath, expecting the distress they'd seen during previous separation attempts. But something had changed. Perhaps it was the new environment, or the fact that the Bobcats were now occupied with exploring their expansive habitat, but their reaction was milder than anticipated. They called for Daisy a few times, but didn't show the extreme anxiety they had before. "I think they sense this is different," Maria observed. "That this is where they belong, and that Daisy will return." Over the next 6 months, Emily received regular updates and occasionally visited the preserve. The transition had gone better than anyone dared hope. The Bobcats thrived in their new habitat, growing into strong, healthy subadults. Daisy adjusted beautifully to living with Maria, enjoying the comforts of domestic life while still spending part of each day with her Bobcat family. As the Bobcats matured, their relationship with Daisy naturally evolved. They still greeted her enthusiastically during her daily visits, but they became increasingly independent, spending more time exploring their habitat and practicing hunting skills. By the time they reached their first birthday, they were magnificent young adults, their bond with Daisy changing from dependency to companionship. What happened 18 months later, however, was what truly astounded everyone involved. It began with an alarming phone call from Maria. "Scout is sick, Emily," she reported, her voice tense. "Dr. Mendez thinks it's a bacterial infection. He's not responding to treatment and he's refusing food." Emily, now 60, and considering retirement, though not quite ready to let go of the sanctuary, felt her heart sink. She had remained deeply invested in the Bobcats' welfare, considering them among the most special cases of her long career. "How bad is it?" she asked. "Bad enough that we're very concerned," Maria admitted. "He's withdrawn to the far corner of the quarantine area. Won't let anyone near him, not even me." Emily made the decision instantly. "I'm coming, and bring Daisy to see him. Right away." The drive to Colorado felt interminable. By the time Emily arrived at the preserve, Scout had been ill for 3 days, growing weaker despite the medical team's best efforts. "We can't get medication into him without sedation, and he's too weak for repeated sedation," Dr. Mendez explained as they hurried toward the veterinary building. "He needs to eat and take oral antibiotics, but he's refusing everything." They found Maria waiting outside the quarantine room, Daisy sitting alertly at her side. The dog had aged beautifully into her role as companion to both Maria and the Bobcats, her face now showing touches of white around the muzzle, but her eyes still bright with intelligence. "She knows something's wrong," Maria said. "She's been whining to come here since Scout got sick." Through the observation window, Emily could see Scout curled in the corner of the room, his magnificent coat dull, his sides heaving with the effort of breathing. He looked smaller somehow, vulnerable in his illness. "Let Daisy in," Emily said firmly. "Let's see if she can reach him when we can't." They equipped Daisy with a sturdy harness and leash for safety, then carefully opened the quarantine room door. Daisy entered slowly, her nose working, her ears forward with concern. She spotted Scout immediately and gave a soft whine of recognition. Scout raised his head weakly, his eyes finding Daisy. For a moment he seemed confused, as if his illness had clouded his memory. Then he made a small sound, not quite a meow, not quite a chuff. a sound Emily had heard many times when the bobcats were kittens greeting their surrogate mother. Moving with gentle purpose, Daisy approached Scout, ignoring the veterinary team's cautions to be careful. When she reached him, she lowered herself to the floor beside him and began to groom his face and ears, just as she had when he was a tiny, orphaned kitten. What happened next left everyone in the room speechless. Scout, who had rejected all food for days, allowed Dr. Mendez to approach with a small bowl of broth containing dissolved antibiotics. With Daisy present, providing comfort and security with her familiar presence, Scout lapped weakly at the medicinal broth. "I'll be damned," Dr. Mendez whispered. Over the next 3 days, Daisy rarely left Scout's side. She slept beside him, encouraged him to eat, and seemed to provide a strength that medicine alone couldn't offer. When Patch and Rascal were briefly allowed to visit their brother, it created a tableau that brought tears to Emily's eyes. 3 grown bobcats and their canine surrogate mother, together again in a moment of need. Scout's recovery was gradual but steady. By the end of the week, he was eating regularly and showing improved energy. The infection responded to the antibiotics, and his prognosis improved from guarded to good. "It's remarkable, Doctor," Mendez told Emily as they watched Scout take his first short walk around the quarantine enclosure, Daisy walking patiently beside him. "I've worked with wildlife for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like this relationship." "Love transcends species," Emily said simply, thinking of all the wonders she'd witnessed in her decades of wildlife work. On the day Scout was well enough to return to the main habitat, Maria suggested something unprecedented. "I think Daisy should go with him, just for today, to help him settle back in with his siblings." It was an unusual request, but given the extraordinary circumstances, the preserve's director approved it. With careful supervision, Daisy accompanied Scout back to the habitat where Patch and Rascal waited. Emily, watching from the observation deck, will never forget what she saw that day. As they entered the enclosure, all 3 bobcats came together in a reunion of purrs and gentle head bumps. Then, in a moment that seemed choreographed, though it was entirely natural, they surrounded Daisy, their surrogate mother, each finding a place beside her as they had as kittens. For several minutes, the unusual family simply existed together in perfect harmony. Wild and domestic, feline and canine. A bond forged in desperate need and sustained by something that could only be called love. "This is why I've done this work all these years," Emily said softly to Lizzie, who had flown in when she heard about Scout's illness. "For moments like this, moments that remind us that healing sometimes comes in the most unexpected forms." In the years that followed, the relationship between Daisy and her bobcat family continued to evolve. As the bobcats matured fully, their need for her constant presence diminished, but their bond remained. Daisy, growing older but still spry, continued her daily visits, now more friend than mother, but no less important to their well-being. The sanctuary and the preserve jointly published a paper on the extraordinary case, contributing valuable insights to the field of wildlife rehabilitation. Emily, who finally retired at 65, often used the story in her lectures to aspiring wildlife rehabilitators. "Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't in a syringe or a surgery," she would tell them, showing slides of Daisy and her bobcat family through the years. "Sometimes it's in connection, in meeting a need so fundamental that it transcends the boundaries we think exist between species." And on quiet evenings, when she visited the preserve to see the animals that had changed her understanding of what was possible, Emily would watch Daisy, now elderly but still devoted, sitting peacefully near the habitat fence. The three adult bobcats lounging nearby, their family bond enduring despite everything that logic said should have pulled them apart. "The unthinkable," Emily would murmur, remembering her initial fears when Lizzie first suggested the unlikely pairing. Sometimes the unthinkable turns out to be exactly what's needed. In the golden light of sunset, wild and domestic, rescued and rescuer, family in the truest sense of the word, they remained together, a living testament to the healing power of love without boundaries.